What is going on, everybody? Welcome to it. We are back at it again. I'm coming to you a little bit sooner this time going through just because I wanted to do this at the end of the game. Pretty pumped up about it. Georgia gets a big win at home to open up the, start of the season first home game. Not really a great way to explain it there, but anyways, Georgia, big win, 56-7 over UAB. Yes, I know, I get it. It's only UAB. We shouldn't necessarily be, too excited about it, but I am. And I think most Dawg fans are too. Going to try to make sure the video actually stays up and running like it's supposed to today. Let me get this pulled up on the screen too. A lot of moving pieces here. Real excited. Probably see a smile on my face most of the time throughout this entire thing. You guys follow me on Twitter at DawgTalk20. Had a lot of content. You'll see me looking over here and there, kind of keeping an eye on that because just got a lot of interaction going with that. That's what's going to come up at the end of the episode, like it always does. Let me get my page pulled up here. Doesn't have anything to do with you guys, but does have to do with just what I need to be able to see as we go through the show here. Video, I know that's pretty boring, but anyways, huge game, a little bit of news we're going to go through. We're going to break down the game in the entirety. I mean, again, offensive just blow up. Talk about some other games around the country because looking at it right now, there's some big ones. Arkansas just put up the win against Texas. We're going to jump to that. A couple of other big games, a couple of top 10 teams going down, a couple of them keeping it much closer than they should have. Then at the end of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about some Twitter content, a little back and forth with you guys. I put out a lot of polls. A lot of those polls got answered. I'll give you the results of some of that. I know I'm going to have to scroll way back to be able to find that because it's just been a long day of it. And when Georgia plays, I mean, the tweets are flying left and right. Half the time I'm looking at my phone tweeting stuff. Half the time I'm looking up at the screen watching the game. So that's really fun. It's fun to interact with you guys that interact with us on Twitter. That always makes it really fun to be able to go back and forth with people here and there on that, which is, again, just fun. See if my page has finally popped up here. Yeah, here we go. Again, you guys follow me on Twitter at DawgTalk20. YouTube, again, the link will be in the description of the podcast. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you can follow those links as well to be able to get to the podcast if you wanted to listen to it there. Outside of just watching it, make sure you guys rate and review. I'd really appreciate that if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. Give me a thumbs up, like, share it, send it to whoever you want to. But again, biggest thing is let's get that 5-star review in there. That'll help me out a lot. And then the website, dawgtalkpod.com, spelled like it's supposed to be, DAWGTALKPOD.com. That is dawgtalkpod.com. You guys go and check out the website whenever you get a chance. If you hear a little noise in the background, it's just my dog drinking water. Don't worry about it. We'll move right on past it. Again, this game was at 3:30 on ESPN2 against UAB. What a great game it was. Let's start it off with the breakdown. Or excuse me, let me go through the news. I'm jumping ahead because I was so excited to finally see the offense move the ball, score a lot of points in this game. We've been waiting on it. We were waiting on it against Clemson. Didn't get it. We got it quick, really quick, and in a hurry, starting this game off against UAB. And again, it's UAB. It's not Alabama. It's not a huge team that we're playing and a huge game, but it was still that confidence booster and that ability to be able to finally get the offense up and running. That can make a big difference as we move forward throughout the season. Start with the news. The first piece of news was, how is this game going to start off? Who's going to be the quarterback? JT Daniels. He doesn't look like the guy who's going to be in there. So who are we going with? It was all, the conversation, especially on Twitter, was, all right, it's either Carson Beck or it's Stetson Bennett. By the start of this game, if there was any question in the world why we weren't seeing Carson Beck, it got answered within the first, 3 drives of the game, because each time Stetson came out there and threw a touchdown pass. Unbelievable. Everybody, I saw this on Twitter, I shared it, liked it, what have you. Everybody deserves not only to give an apology to Stetson Bennett, but also to Kirby Smart for thinking that he didn't know what he was doing by putting Stetson in there. My goodness, he lit the world on fire. I think at the end of the night, we're going to get to the stats. I won't tell you just yet. We'll make you stick around. I mean, you can always hit the ESPN button and look and go, okay, all right, big guy, if you're going to try to make us wait, I'll just go and look. It's not going to take that long before I get to that point, but, man, I'm just fired up about that because Stetson came in, lit the world on fire. Hate it for JT. Again, I think it's just a oblique strain, which that's just a few days rest. We may take a couple of weeks and give him rest because seeing how Stetson did in this game, there's no reason in the world to me that you couldn't rest JT another week when you've got South Carolina next week, because South Carolina does not look good. They struggle mightily with East Carolina, I guess it was, earlier today. We'll get to some of those games later on in the episode. But to struggle with something like that, and as good as Stetson Bennett did in this game, rest JT, because guess what? We got Arkansas after that. They come to us, which is good, but the week after that, we're headed to Auburn. Those are a couple of really big games once we start to really dive into that SEC play after we start next week against South Carolina, which should be a little easier. So prayers up to JT. Hopefully it is just a strain. He looked pretty good on the sideline. Didn't look like he was in a lot of pain, which, I mean, he wasn't doing anything but standing there, talking to the other quarterbacks. But whatever it is that he's battling, if it be, is or is not that, hopefully he can move past that and, kind of move forward. And hopefully we get him back by the time we get to Arkansas, by the time we get to Auburn later on in the season. Right now, if we had to go with Stetson, that's the guy. It's not something that you're necessarily saying, oh, yeah, let's just go with this guy. I think JT's going to get to come back in, and I don't think this is going to be a repeat. And I know we talked about this on the last episode that came out on Friday. We talked about, is this a flashback to 2017? Could this be a situation where, JT goes out? We put Stetson at the time. Everybody thought it was Carson, myself more than likely included in that. We all wondered if that was going to be a situation where somebody comes in, if they light the world on fire, does JT get to come in again or not? In this situation, I really do believe that JT will get a shot to come back in. And not really a shot. I think I put it on Twitter. I still think he's QB1. I think he's going to be the guy who's going to lead this team to really good places by the end of the season, just the way that things are looking offensively and defensively for the Dogs. So I do fully expect to see him back in a couple of weeks once we get into some of those bigger games. But in the meantime, Stetson looked really good. And in the meantime, I'm also glad to know that we've got some wide receivers that are hurt, banged up, but hopefully by then as well we'll be able to get those guys in as well. That's the other piece of news. Kearis Jackson, he was in the game at punt return. He returned the ball a few times and looked good in some of the returns that he had. He was very explosive on some of his returns. Didn't do a lot of moving. I still think that knee may be a little bit troublesome. Didn't have the brace on it. That's a good thing. Seems like he is continuing to progress. Didn't see Demetrius Robertson. I think that's the guy who actually tried. Dominic Blaylock. There we go. Sorry. I get those mixed up a couple of times. Didn't see him back in the game at all. Didn't see Kearis come in a wide receiver position either. We saw him, like I say, multiple times in the punt situation. And he did great there, but we didn't really see him in that wide out spot. So he's still, working on things. In the meantime, Jermaine Burton, he did come in. He shined in a big way, especially starting the game off. So I was glad to see us get him back. That helped a lot. But we're still, Darnell Washington, he's still not back. He's still, getting everything, I guess, rehab to get that foot back in a situation where he can get back in the game. In the meantime, on that side of things too, we got a great tight end in Brock Bowers who showed out today. Back-to-back weeks that he's actually going to lead the receiving category for the Dogs. So, hey, if you get Darnell in this guy in here and you get our other wide receivers on the outside healthy, my goodness, you better watch out because Georgia's coming offensively. Last little piece of news. Nope, that was pretty much it before we jump into some of the other. Sorry, on you guys on YouTube, I'm going to try to get the dog to calm down. Come here. Come on. She likes to hang out underneath me. Lay down. And just hang out under the desk here while I do it. But her walking around and everything, that'll aggravate me listening to it on podcast. But anyway, moving forward, that is all the news that I really have for you guys. I'm sure there's some other big things that have come out. I have not watched any of the post-game conferences with Kirby Smart yet to know exactly what he said about anything as far as anybody being injured. I know there was some concern that came up with Arian Smith. He had a pretty good game as well. Fairly certain, if I remember correctly, yeah, he had a touchdown pass, also won 61 yards. But it seems like not long after that, he had actually went out, I think, with maybe that foot, maybe that turf toe is still bothering him. But I have not read or seen anything that Kirby has put out as far as that goes. Usually, I wait to do the episode on Sunday night so you guys get it on Monday. That way, if anything does come out, and it also gives me time to look back through all the stats, anything that stands out. It also gives me time to listen to see if Kirby puts anything out, if we have an injury that came up that none of us really knew about. But I'm putting this one out, doing it Saturday night. You guys will get it Sunday. That gives you an extra day ahead of time to be able to watch or listen wherever you guys watch or listen. Appreciate you guys being here again. But if anything like that comes, just keep up with the socials, keep up with the website. I'm sure I'll put things up on there to keep everybody kind of in tune with everything. Let's get to the game breakdown. That's awesome, isn't it? It's awesome to hit the wrong button as we're sitting here on the stream video. Makes it look really good. Anyway, let's get right to it. UAB Georgia, number 2 Dogs, taking them down 56-7. Just a great game. Again, the question before the game, JT, he's out. All right, who we getting? Carson Beck, Stetson Bennett. Guess what? Stetson Bennett gets the nod. Twitter absolutely blew up right there when the announcement came out as they're coming onto the field, kind of pregame there. And all I could think in all of this, and I tweeted it on there, it was like, guys, why are we worried about this? First of all, it's UAB. It's UAB. This is not Alabama. We're not playing Alabama. We're not playing Florida. We're not playing Auburn. We're not playing Oklahoma. We're not playing Clemson again. This is UAB, a team that we should be able to handle, whether it is Stetson, whether it is Carson, and we did. As you can see by the final of this game, the score definitely showed exactly that. Why in the world we blew up and worried so much about it, I don't know for the life of me. And I even put it on Twitter. We're going to be fine. Whether it's Stetson, whether it's Carson, I was looking forward to seeing Carson come in. I even had high hopes for him. Was a little surprised to see Stetson get the nod, but nonetheless, I knew that even in the games that he played last year, taking an Arkansas game that we were behind in, he leads us to come back and win that game. He goes on to win 3 games as a starter. Now, we fall to Alabama as he was a starter in that one. Had the lead at halftime. Just fell apart in the second half. He made some mistakes in that game. That happens. And I think the only other loss we had, was Florida, that he started in that one too. And we were banged up really badly on defense and offense in that game as well. So Stetson has the – and this was another thing I think I had actually put on Twitter as well. I'm going to have a lot of reference to Twitter because that's just back and forth throughout the entire game doing that. But try to remember my train of thought here because it just goes right out the window. But it was Stetson is going to come in. He is the starter. He's going to do a great job. Let's relax. Everything's going to be just fine. And sure enough, it was. I mean, the first play of the game, which, by the way, ESPN absolutely dropped the ball on that, didn't they? I'm sitting here watching what was the end of the South Carolina-East Carolina game. It comes down to a field goal. They're doing the little post-game. All the stuff's coming across the bottom. And I was like, all right. And they had even said, all right, it'll be on the ESPN app. Well, I'm pulling up the app, trying to scroll through and get it to pull up. Can't see anything. I'm like, what's going on here? So then I'm thinking, okay, we're at the end of the game here. They'll put the Georgia game on. We won't miss kickoff. This is going to be great. All of a sudden, the guy comes on the screen and he says, we're going to tune in to the Tennessee-Pitt ending. And I'm thinking, why? Aren't they on ESPN or SEC Network right now? Why are we swapping to that? It's already on TV. We don't need to. So then they swap to it and say that you can watch the Georgia game on the ESPN app. I look on the screen. There's 7 minutes left in this Tennessee game. What are we doing? I look on the app. Nothing. Says that your game will be pulled up in just a minute. I finally get it pulled up. We're already winning 7-0. What in the world? ESPN absolutely dropped the ball on that. Ridiculous. That's all there is to it. Why in the world you would have ever jumped to another game, especially a Tennessee game when Georgia's on? You know they hate each other. You know we don't like anybody in orange. What are you doing, ESPN? Maybe they can figure that out. If they do, great. If they don't, whatever. I mean, what can we really do about it anyways other than complain? We do a good job at that on Twitter, by the way. But anyway, so Stetson, starts it off. First, I don't know if it was the first player of the game or not because I didn't get to see it. But it looked like it had to be because there were still 14 minutes and 45 seconds left. Only 15 seconds, I think it ticked off the clock. Boom, huge pass down the sideline to Jermaine Burton for a touchdown. I think it was like a 73, 74, 75-yard touchdown pass on the first pass of the game for him. And he was, lit it up. Ends the night, Stetson 10 for 12, 288 yards, 5 touchdowns. At one point, I can look back, it was like he was 6 for 6 at one point, but like 268 yards and 4 touchdowns. It was unbelievable to see just how well he had done coming into this game. And I loved it because it shut everybody up that was saying, why is Stetson in this game? And I had one guy, he had asked me, this guy, he's not the future of the program. And I'm thinking, well, no, not really. I mean, he's a senior, so he's not necessarily the future as far as next year. And I could see the argument that he had as far as let's get these other guys like Brock in there. Let's get these other guys like Carson in there. These are guys that need to be getting these reps because these, in the end, are the guys who are the future of the program. And I do understand that. But at the same time, if you get Carson Beck in there and he does what he ended up doing by the end of the night, which we'll get to it in just a second, it's a different ball game. I don't think we win the game nearly as handily as we did in that situation. So no, Stetson's not necessarily the future of the program, but if in this season he can help guide and lead us to a national championship, what are we worried about? That's where we want to be at the end of the season. At the end of the season, whether we're 12-0, 11-1, it doesn't matter. We want to be playing for an SEC title. We want to win that title, get into the college football playoff, and play for a national championship. I don't care who's at quarterback. I don't care if by the end of the season, if it's, Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift, Stetson Bennett, JT Daniels. If we can get to that point and win a national championship, whoever is putting their foot forward and helping to lead this program to a national championship, it does not matter to me who it ends up being. And in the end, it shouldn't matter to anybody as long as we are winning the game, we're getting to where we need to be, and being successful at it. And Stetson Bennett came in there, and he did exactly that. Lit the world on fire. His first 6 passes of the game, he'd already had 4 touchdowns. 4 of his 6 passes were touchdown passes, all of which I think were over like 60, 3 of which I think were 60 yards plus. I need to pull this stat up that I read earlier, which was pretty amazing, actually. It was something along the lines that Stetson Bennett is now the third quarterback. Maybe it's like 5th or 6th. I don't know. May have that completely wrong and botched this stat completely. But in Georgia football program history to have thrown for 3 touchdowns, 60 yards plus in a game. Stetson Bennett wrote his name down in history book at the University of Georgia in a season we thought we would probably never see him come back into. We all thought he was QB3, if not QB4, behind Brock. And guess what? He comes in and lights the world on fire, sets records for himself, puts his name, gets to etch his name in the history book at the University of Georgia when it comes to college football. And I'm proud of the guy. I'm proud of him. I'm excited for him. I know he probably has to be on top of the world right now. Coming off of last season where he came into some big situations and did a really good job considering. All things considered, he did a really good job. Even though at the end of the season last year, I think he ended like 3-2 as a starter. That doesn't get to include the Arkansas game because he wasn't a starter for it. But I still think he, in my opinion, should get that win and be 4-2. You lose to Alabama, that sucks. First half, you look great. Second half, you made mistakes. It happens. Florida, again, we're banged up in that game. I think if we're in the situation we are now against Florida, last year that doesn't happen. But I digress. We got a long way to go this season before we can, we shouldn't worry about last season anyway. So, completely different year. Let's run through some stats here. Stetson, I already told you, 10 for 12, 288, 5 touchdowns. Carson Beck, 4 for 10, 88 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And the interception was a big one. The Dogs were pitching a shutout, 56-0, looking like we were going to drive down and score over 60 points in this game, which, by the way, we should have. We probably should have scored 70 on these guys. And Carson comes in, back and forth between him and Stetson, and throws a pick 6, and it was a long one. I don't remember how many yards it was. I'll get down to it, I'm sure, in just a minute. But 4 for 10. For all the skeptics out there that didn't want Stetson to start, you put these two lines side by side and talk about it like that, yeah, that kind of shuts your mouth pretty quick as far as Stetson Bennett's side of things go. And again, I'm just proud of the guy. I can move on from that so we don't have to talk about it necessarily all night. So, passing, look at that. 376 yards through the air, 6 touchdowns, the 1 interception on the night. Between the both of them, they go 14 for 22. Stetson made that line look pretty good there to only have 2 incompletions on the night. Down to the rushing category, we rushed the ball 163 yards, only 1 touchdown on the night. I was really expecting Georgia to probably lean on that ground game, but I think I'd actually even called this back. What was it? I guess it had to have been the last episode, and I put that on Twitter again, referencing back to that. I think Graham Coffey was the one that I'd actually referenced to it, where this is something, if you go back to the last episode, I was curious, and it's kind of what I figured. If it wasn't JT Daniels starting this game, I figured this was going to be UAB's game plan. And in the end, it may have been their plan all along, because they didn't really know until later on in the week that JT may not be starting. And they, sure enough, they stacked the box, tried to take the run game away, make us prove that we can throw it over the top in the air. Stetson lit that up. He called that right off the bat, so we ended up in great shape off of that, because we just took off, never looked back. Defense looked really good. We did give up more rushing yards in this game, but I think total we held them 127 yards on the ground, 47 through the air. I mean, so you're talking about less than 200 yards total against us in that. So I think defensively we stood up pretty well as that. Back to the rushing category, Zeus, he does lead us, 7 touches, 34 yards. Dejon Edwards, I was wondering if we were going to see him this season. We do. Check this out. 8 running backs. I don't know if you could really consider it 8, because Stetson Bennett did run one time for 20 yards. Carson Beck ran it twice for 2 yards. So maybe 6. 6 running backs touched the ball. Zeus 7 times, 34 yards. Dejon Edwards 7 times, 29 yards. Kendall Milton, glad to see him get some touches. Wish he would have got some more. Was really hoping right there before the pick 6, I think it was, that we would give him the rock one more time, let him put it in the end zone. Instead, it turns to a pick 6. He does touch the ball, though, 8 times, 26 yards. Kenny McIntosh, 4 times, 20 yards. James Cook, 5 times, 18 yards. He does end up getting the touchdown, where we all thought he was tackled at about, the 7-yard line, rolls around the side, ends up scooting into the end zone. So the Dogs look good. Didn't rush the ball nearly as much as I thought. That is a little bit of a question. Not necessarily a concern, but it is a question that is going to have to be answered. It is. I know that we're beat up on the O-line right now, but we struggled mightily for a team that over the past 5 years has been known to be a very, very good running back team. And I've even said that they're RBU. That's just my opinion. But for a team that has been known to be a running back school for the past 5 years, we have not started the season to look like that. Again, Clemson, a little bit of a difference, because that defense is very stout, just like Georgia. I think they may have pitched a shutout in their game tonight. We'll look back at it in just a second when we get down to some of the other games. But didn't rush a lot against them. Pretty equal to this game, really. And then you turn around in a game like this. Again, part of that is because I think UAB's plan and their scheme was to load the box. Let's get set, instead of what Clemson was doing, dropping 7 and taking that air game away and making you kind of run, which I think we got away from a little too soon and never really went back to it, to be quite frank with you. But in this game, they just loaded it up to make sure they could take the run away. And in doing that, we turned around and throw the ball for almost 400 yards. So take it how you will. The receiving category, Brock Bowers lit the world on fire. 3 receptions, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of those came on a big blast down the right sideline. Stetson hit him again, and he just outran everybody. This dude is a stud. Right now, he's tight end 1, but when Darnell Washington comes back, if you put these 2 guys on the field at the same time, just watch out. That's all I can say, because you got 2 studs that are in there that are going to be able to light the world on fire and are going to do really good things for the University of Georgia moving forward. Jermaine Burton, again, 3 touches, 92 yards on the night. Almost had 2 guys with 100 yards. That's a poll I should have put up. Don't think it would have got very many votes that, hey, we might have 2 guys actually get 100 yards receiving on the night. That would have been cool to see. He does get 1 touchdown. Arian Smith, the 1 touchdown for 61 yards. Adonai Mitchell, my dude AD, he got 2 touches on the night, 42 yards. Lab McConkey, 1 touch, 32 yards. Kenny McIntosh, 1 touch, 12. Justin Robinson, 1 touch for 12. Jalen Johnson, 1 touch for 12. And then you also got John Fitzpatrick, did get in for 1 as well for 6 yards. 6 touchdowns through the air. Unbelievable. On 14 touches. 376 yards through the air. The Dogs didn't fumble the ball at all. We did get 3 interceptions on the night. Keely Ringo finally gets his first one. Lewis Seen, he got 1 as well. And then a guy that I didn't, I'll be honest with you. I'm just gonna be honest. I don't know who Jamon Dumas Johnson is. He's a freshman that came in here, but he got a pick six in the game. How awesome is that to get in and get a pick six, 20-yard pick six as a true freshman coming in there at the linebacker position. Glad to see that. I mean, I've said it all season, all preseason. Kirby Smart does nothing but move these guys in and out. There is so much depth on offense, but on defense, it is unbelievable how much depth there is on the defensive line. Linebackers, I mean, it doesn't matter. The entire defense in a whole, I'm at a loss for words. Because Kirby does nothing but just work these guys in and out and does such a great job at creating that depth, creating ability, opportunity for these young guys, especially these freshmen to get in and do what they've been able to do. Let's look at that defense. Channing Tindall, pinning the ears back, 7 total tackles, 6 of those by himself, 1 sack on the night. Trevon Walker, 4 total tackles as well, 2 of those being solo. Adam Anderson got himself another sack on the night. Stackhouse, he got a sack on the night as well. Xavier Sorey, he got a tackle for loss, wasn't a sack. Only ended up with 3 sacks on the night. I'll have to look back at my poll and see what it was. I think that was it. It was like 0 to 2, 3 to 5, or 6 plus. I picked that kind of 3 to 5. I figured it'd be on the high end, maybe 4 or 5. But hey, we were still pretty close. We still got in the backfield. 5 tackles for loss too. You could have had a couple more tacked on there as well, but had some situations where they got on the line. But I mean, what a great night. We're looking at a heap load of guys. I mean, goodness gracious. I kind of want to count this. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to count it. "21 guys on 32 solo tackles. 21 guys got 32 solo tackles, 3 sacks, and 5 tackles for loss. 21 different guys got to tackle somebody solo, at least. That is unbelievable. 20, I guess. I'm looking back at one number that's actually a little off. Did get 2 tackles, but none of which were solo. So 20 guys. That was Quay. He got two tackles on the night, but none were solo. So, I mean, 20 guys getting to get tackles in a game, that's pretty unbelievable to me. Because, I mean, it's just that good. Channing Tindall, he ended up being the leader again there on defense. Jake Camarda, my goodness, continues to show why he's the top punter in the country. Continues to show why he won that award last year and why he should win this one again this year. Kieris, he did end up getting a return on punt, 33 yards. I thought he was going to bust loose on it. One thing that has not really been addressed on special teams, and now we're only 2 games in, but who we call Hot Pod, off a Hot Rod last year and the years previous, or 2 years ago, excuse me, Jack Podlesny. We're going to have to work on some stuff there. That's all I can say. 0 for 1, goes 8 for 8 on his extra points, but 0 for 1. Had the one opportunity to kick a field goal and missed it. Not like a Georgia kicker. It's not like a Georgia field goal kicker to be missing. And maybe that's because we were so used to old Specs getting in there and getting the job done for us for, 4 or 5 years there. I don't remember if he was even kicking as a true freshman. But definitely 4 total years. I mean, he was clutch. You knew that if he was in the game and we had a situation where we're kicking a field goal, he gets it done. Now, not trying to knock on him because old Hot Pod, he did good last year and came through in the clutch against Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl last year. But, again, that was last year. We can't sit back and harp on that the entire time. You just can't. But we've got to start making these field goals in situations where it could have been. Look back last week. What, he missed 2? 1 or 2? It's hard for me to remember. You make those, and that's a different ballgame. We're a little bit further out of reach. It makes it a lot tougher for a team to be able to come back and do much off of us. Yeah, again, we hold. I mean, we just did such a great job. Proud of the Dogs. Glad to be a Dawg. #Dogs on top. Let's look at some of the team stats overall. First downs. Dogs get 23 first downs compared to UAB's 11. Third down efficiency, we weren't all that great last year. A lot better last week, a lot better this week. 6 for 11, just over 50%. Need to get a little bit better at that, but that will come. It looks a lot better this year again. 174 total yards for UAB. Defense stood up for sure. Hold them to 47 yards through the air, 127 on the ground. Gave up a lot more rushing yards than I anticipated us giving up in this game. But I will give UAB a little bit of credit as far as they were smart about kind of getting wide receivers out wide and tossing to them and passing. But then they were also able to open up some running gaps that I really wasn't expecting. But that's pretty much also what UAB leaned on. Now let's also look at the time of possession. Georgia ended up in the end with the ball just a little over a minute more than they did. But that first quarter alone, all it was Georgia's defense on the field because I would be interested to see a stat, and I should have maybe looked this up beforehand, but again, I'm just kind of doing it on the fly really quickly. I would be interested to know a stat on just how much time Georgia actually had the ball in the first quarter. Georgia scores 21 points in the first quarter, 3 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns in the second, 2 touchdowns in the third, and a touchdown in the fourth. I would be pretty interested to know just how much time Georgia actually had the ball in the first quarter, because then you turn around and that means your defense is on the field more. Same thing second quarter. When you're scoring as fast and as big as we were, your defense is just on the field a lot longer. And when that happens, you might get gashed a little bit more. I think our defense is still the number 1 defense in the country. I mean, you only give up 174 yards. That's pretty good. Penalties, we outweigh them on that pretty well. 4 penalties for us, 47. They had 11 for 78. They turned the ball over 3 times. We only did it once on that pick 6. Hate it for Carson, but that did unfortunately give up the shutout. And I know a lot of people are probably kind of hammering on him on that, but they go 8 for 7. Passing, check this out. Passing yards per pass, 2.8 yards per pass for UAB. 17.1 for Georgia. If you go back, I think probably just to Stetson's line alone, his line is well above that. I bet you, I know at one point we were looking and he was averaging 40 yards, 46 yards a pass when he was 4 for 4 with 3 touchdowns on the night. I mean, he was lighting the world on fire. It was awesome. Proud of him, and I was glad to see it. Rushes per yard, 3.5 for them, 4.3 for us. Again, we were pretty evenly matched on the rushing category. That's one thing I want to see open up. I want to see this O-line continue to block, get a little bit better, try to get healthy again. I know it's tough with the movement that we've had to make on the line with Tate going out, with Warren Erickson's hand, his injury that he's been battling as well. But I still want to see that offensive line improve, because we get against teams like an Arkansas that we're going to face coming up in a couple of weeks, like an Auburn when we travel to Jordan-Hare, October 9th. Those are going to be a couple of bigger games where that O-line is going to be tested. Once you get into that SEC play, that O-line is going to be tested. So that's going to be something we have to check into and get in check, that O-line, because we need to be able to run the ball. We can't be one-dimensional and focus primarily on passing the ball, because at some point you're going to face a team who's going to take that same scheme Clemson did, and you're not going to be able to put the ball through the air. So that's a little bit of something to keep in mind there as well. I'm going to see if I can get our schedule pulled up here real quick, which was actually what I meant to do earlier. Just kind of forgot about it, to be honest with you. Let's see here. There we go. Schedule on the side. Already updated the score for that. Yeah. Got that game against Auburn there on the 9th. Arkansas again. Luckily, that one's at home on the 2nd. Those times, we'll get those determined. But next week, we get to go ahead and focus our attention now on South Carolina. I got the top 25 going across the bottom if you guys want to check that out. That's going to change. You got a lot of teams that have fallen in games that they probably shouldn't. And a lot of other teams that just didn't look good. Teams that struggled in games that they shouldn't. Still won, but struggled in games that they shouldn't. Which I think that's a pretty good segue to go ahead and jump into some of that now. So let's do that. All right, some of the games around the country. Let's lead it off here. I'm gonna keep it simple from the top. Oklahoma, they took care of business against Western Carolina. Did not look good last week, and I think they're trying to make up for that this week because it ends up being, let's see. I think it's 76-0. Yeah, 76-0 against a Western Carolina. I think, again, they were just trying to make up for last week. Spencer Rattler, 5 touchdowns on the night, 243 yards. But guess what? He had to go 20 for 26. Stetson didn't have to do that. I'm just saying. Just saying. The big one, the one that I was looking forward to, excited. Picked Arkansas to beat Texas in this one. Texas come in ranked 15th. In my opinion, Arkansas needs to be ranked in the top 20. Not top 25. They need to be ranked in the top 20. Taking Texas down 40-21. 40-21. They put up 333 rushing yards in this game. 333. Traylon Smith, he led the category with that. 75 yards, 1 touchdown. KJ Jefferson didn't look all that great. Didn't throw a touchdown pass through the air. 138 yards and an interception, 14 for 19. Defense for Arkansas looked really good all night. There were a couple of things that I did notice about this. That was that secondary of Arkansas. A little iffy at times. There were a couple of times Texas had guys wide open. Luckily, quarterbacks for Texas couldn't catch them. Couldn't hit them. And when they did, their receivers couldn't catch the ball half the time. So it could have been a little bit tighter if some of that had made, kind of made that connection, but didn't in the end. We're a Georgia podcast, so let's move forward with it instead of diving too deep into it. Glad to see Arkansas get a big win there. Wisconsin, not much of that. Another one that I would have picked this one too, I think I talked a little bit about it, was App State and Miami. Miami barely squeaking by. Number 22, they beat App State 25-23. De'Aaron King, 200 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, a lot of that I kind of credit to App State really though, because again, I think I just expected App State. They're not a bad team, but I also expected they could be in this game, and in the end, look, they do. They end up falling by 2, unfortunately, but probably should have beat Miami. Ole Miss taking care of business. Some of this defense is a question for me. 54-17. They're putting it up. I ain't got but 3 minutes left. Ole Miss, they'll move to 2-0. But Austin Peay should not be scoring 17 points. They scored 7 in the second quarter. So a touchdown second and the fourth quarter. I don't know. Maybe you've already, by that time, got some scratch guys in there. Not 100% on that. Matt Corral, 281 yards, 5 touchdowns. Ole Miss, yeah. Continuing to roll. North Carolina, they do their business. Alabama, number 1 Alabama beats Mercer 48-14. Some conversation I saw on Twitter that was kind of funny is Georgia didn't give up 2 touchdowns, and their defense definitely didn't give up any touchdowns. Another awesome fact about Georgia. Put this on Twitter too. Georgia has got, I got to look back at it because I'm blanking on exactly how it was worded here. Georgia's defense has more touchdowns than their opponent's offense has against their defense. Georgia's defense has scored twice. Georgia's opponents on offense have scored 0 times against Georgia. That's what it was. So I don't have to pull it up just yet. Kind of a crazy stat. I saw another one that Alabama has given up 28 points, I think, already, defensively, against teams, one being Miami. Mercer, nothing to their caliber. But I will say this, in my opinion, if UAB and Mercer play, I think UAB probably takes care of Mercer pretty easily. I may be wrong about that. Maybe that's not a stat that I should put out there. Bryce Young, 227, 3 touchdowns, 19 for 27. All right. I think at the start of that game, the most interesting thing was Mercer was actually putting some pressure on Bryce and didn't look all that great to start with. They scored a couple touchdowns in the first, but there were times where they didn't necessarily look all that great. Again, Stetson goes 10 for 12, 288, 5 touchdowns. What a great number. The game I was tweeting about before our game even started, the game that got probably the most attention and the most return of conversation with people was the Oregon and the Ohio State game. I don't care if Ohio State loses every game for the rest of time. I just do not care for Ohio State. They get put in the top 5 when they don't belong. Last week they struggled in a game against Minnesota. Again, I think Minnesota's probably pretty good. They're not in the top 25, but I still think they're probably pretty good. Oregon, they're obviously pretty good too, but I just don't think that Ohio State, and people want to talk about Ohio State's defense. What defense? They don't have one. They're not a good defense. Offensively, they still got a lot of things to figure out. C.J. Stroud, he looked good, almost 500 yards in the game, 3 touchdowns. It's hard to believe you go 35, 54. First of all, having to throw the ball 50 times in a game, almost 500 yards, goes 484, 3 touchdowns. You lose the game. Lose the game by a touchdown. And I was glad to see it the whole time. I was sitting there laughing, just hoping that Oregon pulled it out, and they did. 35-28. Number 12, Oregon takes down number 3, Ohio State. Again, top 25 is going to change up a good bit. Top 10, that's going to change a good bit. Because the next one, number 5, Texas A&M versus unranked Colorado. Texas A&M gets the win in the fourth quarter with a touchdown to make it 10-7. 10-7. I tweeted it. This is nothing like the Georgia-Clemson game last week. Nothing. And if you want to make the comparison and say, I don't know, that's a pretty good defensive battle. Don't come in. Don't do it. Don't come on my timeline with that. Don't do it, because it ain't right. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Just ain't right. I don't know. I will say this. I know that Haynes King, I think, went out probably in the first quarter, pretty early there in the first quarter as well. And prayers up to him, whatever it is that he's got going on. I don't know if it was something with his ankle, foot, leg, whatever it was. Some kind of injury took him out for the rest of the game. Hopefully it's nothing major. I don't know. I'll see if anything pops up between now and then. So they had to rely on Zach Calzada, 183 and a touchdown. Didn't look too terrible, but Texas A&M, if your main quarterback goes down and you have a second or third string in a game like Colorado, you should be able to put somebody else in there who can make a world of difference. Look at Georgia. They put their second, third, and fourth string in a game and absolutely wear it out an opponent in UAB who should be very similar to Colorado. Now, I will say I give a little bit of credit to Colorado. I think they're a little bit better, and I've even said this, and I think I said it earlier this week when I did the other show, was watch out now. Colorado can be sneaky good. They can be a team to sneak up on you. They're not necessarily a terrible team, but they shouldn't be on the caliber with number 5 Texas A&M. Should not have been a 10-7 game, and a touchdown that came late in the fourth quarter for you to get that win should not have ever happened. Texas A&M, in my opinion, should probably fall on down to probably 7 or 8 after this one. Not a very good win. Clemson 49-3. Hey, I'm glad to see it. DJ Uiagalelei, 171 yards, 1 touchdown. He still didn't necessarily look all that great. Shipley got 80 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. But I was just glad to see them put up 49 points. They put up 4 touchdowns in the first quarter. Again, I love to see it. Georgia put up 3 in the first. They put up 4. Love to see that offense explode so people start to go, maybe they do have a good offense, just like Georgia, 56-7. I mean, come on. Cincinnati, they took care of Murray State. Notre Dame, not a top 10 team. They struggled with FSU last week, and I think FSU's a little bit better, but they only won by a field goal in overtime. They turn around in this one, only win by a field goal. Wasn't overtime. In both of their starting games, as a team who was in the top 10 and started in the top 10, both of their starting games against unranked opponents, they only beat by 3 points each. They beat FSU by 3, and they beat Toledo by 3. What in the world? You get out of the top 10. You're ranked 8th now. Put them down like 15th for all I care. They're not a top 10 team. They're not a team that should be in the playoffs. They're not a team by the end of the year we should go, they had a pretty easy schedule. Yeah, well, they struggled with it. You can't struggle if you've got an easy schedule. And I fully expect that same set of criticism to be put up against Georgia at the end of the season. I fully expect everybody to look at Georgia's schedule and go, okay, they've got a really good and easy schedule. There should be no reason and no room to struggle. So I know that's a lot to put on Georgia, but I believe it. I think Georgia should be a team who has to come in a South Carolina next week, take care of business. And in Arkansas, take care of business. And Auburn for the rest of the season, get in there and let's take care of business, because you should. In all of these games, you should. Top 10 matchup, 9 and 10, taking off Iowa and Iowa State. Iowa looks really good. 27-17 win over Iowa State there in Ames. I don't know why the record hadn't changed there. Brock Purdy didn't do a very good job tonight. 138 with 3 interceptions. Cannot do that. Penn State looked good. Florida, meh. I will say this. Emory Jones will not be the quarterback for Florida moving forward. And if he is, what are you doing, Dan Mullet? Because Anthony Richardson, 3 for 3, 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Guess what? He also led the rushing category again, 215 yards, 1 touchdown. The guy is who you need as your starter. I don't have to tell you that. I shouldn't have to. I'm just a Georgia fan, and I don't care if Florida ever wins another game. But 42-20, they win. But Stetson Bennett could start for him. Carson Beck, he didn't play that great tonight. He could start for him over Emory Jones. Saw that on Twitter, too. It's pretty funny. Virginia Tech beats Middle Tennessee. Auburn absolutely shellacks Alabama State. How lucky of Auburn. How lucky for them to get 2 cupcake games that they absolutely dominate in, which they'll get unlucky next week when they go to Penn State because Penn State's defense is for real. And they're going to figure that out pretty quickly. Utah and BYU, they ended the first quarter just now, 3-0. BYU is up. Stanford up 7-0 over USC halfway through the first. Arizona State trails 3-0. Starting the second. Coastal Carolina on Friday beat Kansas 49-22. I want to jump to some of the SEC games because there were a couple of other big ones in this one as well before we jump down to a couple of others, or some of the other content, mainly being the Twitter stuff because I've got a lot of stuff I got to scroll through. Check this out. LSU, halfway through the fourth quarter, they're only up 27-0 on McNeese. Mac Johnson, 161 yards, 3 touchdowns. But it's kind of cool, though, again, because that's Coach O's son that's being the quarterback there for McNeese. So maybe he's trying to take it easy on him. I don't know. Who cares? Vandy. God almighty. Vandy's losing 14-0. 5 minutes into the second quarter to Colorado State. And Colorado State is probably about to kick a field goal and go up 17-0. Not even halfway through the second quarter. Vanderbilt is not good right now. Ole Miss won. This was the other one we were talking about, a game that I thought was going to be pretty close and could very well turn out to be the team who finishes second behind Georgia in the SEC East. Yes, I said second. I'll knock on wood for you guys who are superstitious, which I am a little bit too, I can't lie. But I think that Kentucky is liable to beat Florida. I'll say it here and now. I think they will. Let's see where that game actually is. It's in Kentucky. That's a good thing. That's coming up in 3 weeks, October 2nd. So, I don't know. Maybe they do end up getting the win. We'll see. Maybe they end up getting the win and being able to move forward and finish second in it. They do beat Missouri 35-28. Connor Bazelak, 294, 4 touchdowns there for Missouri. But Chris Rod absolutely lit it up on the ground, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns. Wan'Dale Robinson also 101 yards through the air. Alabama beat Mercer. A&M struggled. Arkansas, that one's a good one. South Carolina, at the last-second field goal, wins 20-17 over East Carolina. Zeb Nolan, I thought Luke Doty was going to be the starter in this one. I guess not. Zeb Nolan ends up being the guy. 214, 1 touchdown. Again, a last-second field goal to win that game. East Carolina had the game in the bag pretty much the entire game. They were up 14-0. In the second, going to the half, 14-7. Before South Carolina started to make the comeback again. Last second of field goal to win that one by a field goal. And the game that I called that would be the upset, in quotations, if you want to call it an upset, Pitt over Tennessee, and they did. Beat them 41-34. I laugh at it again. Just good stuff to see. Love to see Tennessee going up. Between Ohio State losing, Tennessee losing, and Georgia absolutely coming alive on offense, what a great night. What a great night. The only thing that could have been better is maybe Florida loses too. Whatever. Mississippi State beat NC State 24-10. Glad to see them get a win too in a game that they were not favored by very much. All right. That's pretty much it as far as Georgia breakdown. Haven't seen anything pop up on Georgia, which is a good thing as far as injury fronts or anything like that. So let's jump into some of the stuff on Twitter. Again, you guys on video, guys listening on podcast at Dawg Talk 20. Check it out there. You guys on video, bear with me because I got a lot of stuff that I need to scroll through here on Twitter. I'm not going to put it up on the screen this time, but I'm going to scroll through it because there's just so much and it's still kind of popping off. Again, I finally started to actually pay Twitter a little bit of attention and try to be active on it because last year I wasn't very active on it. And something about this year, I just really started trying to push some interest on it and have actually got quite a few people who are, it's fun interacting with. So I'm enjoying that. Again, at Dawg Talk 20 on Twitter. You go check it out, guys. All right, let me start with all the way at the beginning. I put out a few polls last week. Every week I put out a couple of polls just to kind of feel out, see what everybody's thinking. Most of this was all around the rushing game because I figured this was going to be more of a running game than it was anything. And I don't think anything in the polls actually ended up coming true. So let's start it all the way back to the beginning of last week, pretty much. This is before we knew that JT Daniels was going to be hurt. All right, how many sacks versus Georgia? We got 0 to 2, 3 to 5, and 6 plus. 52% of you guys said 3 to 5. Weren't that good because we ended up with 3. So 52% of you guys were on the money. 9% said 0 to 2, 6 plus said 39. I'd have a good few votes. Again, my takes were that Arkansas upsets Texas, win. Pitt beats Tennessee, win. Give me a couple of those. I did pick Georgia to win 37 to 3. I put that on Twitter too. I think I got it backwards. It's supposed to be 73 to 3. That at least felt a little closer in the end. All right, will UAB score on Georgia's defense? Yes, 39% of you guys. No, 52%, and 9% said absolutely not. So that's 61% of you guys got it right, obviously. Because, again, they didn't score on Georgia's defense. May have scored on the offense. Turnover. Yeah, and a guy on Facebook wanted to say, hey, well, Carson Beck scored. He threw a touchdown. Yeah, to both teams. You can't do that. Questions of the week. I think that was actually earlier. I think I put that up. Yeah, we talked about that one on the last episode. All right, let's kind of catch up to now. All right, Zamir White, over under 150 rushing yards. 71% of you guys said under 150. That hit. All of these rushing categories hit. Kendall Milton, over under 100 rushing yards. 349 votes right here was the over. A lot of that is because, at Father of the Ballers, Chris Milton. This guy's awesome to watch on Twitter. Just in general, something about him. Really like him. Really like the interaction in between with him. But he kind of retweeted and liked that. And when you do that, it kind of blows up just because he is involved with it. He and his son, which is awesome. James Cook, over under 125 total yards. I actually needed to look at that because that may have actually been a little bit closer. I don't think he hits on that either. 125. Maybe if I put that at 100. The under on that one was 69%. Over was 31%. I'm just going to look to see if he actually ended up being a little closer on that. Again, I know if you're watching this on YouTube, it's kind of, dude, what are you doing? We don't care that much. James Cook, all right, 18 yards rushing. Ain't much happening there. And through the air. Oh, my goodness. James Cook didn't get a single reception through the air. Wow, that blows my mind. That's probably the first time in a while that he did not actually get a reception as a running back. Actually, looking at it, none of our running backs got any receptions. Kenny did. Kenny got one. Huh. That's kind of surprising because I know we do a lot of little swing passes to him. Maybe everything we were going for was downfield. Hey, that's all right. Yeah, again, I know this is boring. I'm not doing a dog bites, hashtag dog bites tonight. I'm saving that for Thursday. The Thursday episode, or Friday episodes, you guys get them Friday, but I recorded on Thursdays. But if anybody's interested, most of you guys probably aren't. I did actually end up going with the wings this go around instead of smash burgers. I said I was going to have to do smash burgers from this point forward because we won against Clemson. So kind of got to keep the things the same. Hey, I wore the same hat, same shirt, shorts, shoes, you name it. So I at least did that superstitious side. I'm not really superstitious, but I'm a little stitious. We're all pulling for Oregon. Yeah, 280 people were definitely interested in seeing Oregon get knocked off, or Oregon knock off Ohio State, which again, Ohio State's defense is terrible. Yeah, here was the tweet. All right, let's all chill out for a minute on Stetson. If he goes out there and puts on a show, you ain't got anything to worry about. and you'll have wasted your breath on the whole situation. We're playing UAB. It's not Alabama. It's going to be fine. In the end, guess what? Ended up being fine. But my very next tweet was, and y'all were worried, all because of the touchdown pass that we all missed because ESPN absolutely botched it. Turn around just a little bit later, and he gets another one. Just what a great game. It's funny looking back at this. At one point, Stetson Bennett 4 for 4, 184, 3 touchdowns. And then he does it again, 5 for 5, 245, 4 touchdowns. Man, that was what a great game to look at. 6 for 6, 268, 4 touchdowns. It was good to see Keeley get his first interception on the season. I was really looking forward to and the other guy that got the pick six. I can't even remember his name. Jamon. I'll remember it. I know he's just a freshman. I got some guys that I need to know. Donnie Mitchell, I was glad to see him get some catches in this. Brock Bowers, obviously him getting his first touchdown of the season. It was just great to see. Great to see a lot of these guys. Justin Robinson, I think that was his first touchdown in a Georgia uniform as well. I really wanted to see Kendall Milton get his first touchdown as well. Hated not to get to see that because that I think was coming. But I know that that's coming in the future. I don't think we have to worry about that too much longer because I do think that is coming, and I know we're all looking forward to that. Let's see. Again, I know it's kind of boring listening to this. Carson Bate did get a touchdown. Ended up throwing it to both teams. Yeah, here's that stat that I was looking at earlier. ESPN stats and info. Stetson Bennett is the third FBS player over the last 15 years to record 3 passing touchdowns of 60 yards plus in a single half, joining Patrick Mahomes in 2016. That's pretty good. That's pretty good company there. Stetson Bennett has 5 passing touchdowns today, tied for the most in a game in Georgia history, writing his name in the history books. Isn't that crazy? We already talked about that. Yeah, get the big win. And this is true, and I'll say this out loud on the podcast. JT Daniels is still QB1. Stetson will get the start until he's healthy, and there should be no more discussion about Becker, who it should be, whether it's Becker or Stetson behind JT at this point or from this point forward. How do we feel after that win? Let me just look on here. At Hunter Fallen, feeling good. But the mighty SEC is upon us beginning next week and can't wait. I agree. Hey, I don't know how mighty South Carolina is going to be next week, but in the weeks to come, having Arkansas following that and then having to travel to Auburn, you're right about that. We are about to get into it. Got a little bit of response here from at Klinger_Steven Klinger. I feel probably shouldn't rely on Beck. Bennett should most definitely be QB2. Defense is the best in the country, and offense could potentially be just as deadly. All in all, I'm extremely optimistic about this team and season. I agree with you 100% there, Steven. And I think from this point forward, it is going to be Stetson as QB2 until, and I said this just a minute ago, but as long as JT Daniels is hurt, I think Stetson's actually going to be QB1. And I think I got that all jumbled up. Let me try it again. As long as JT Daniels is hurt, Stetson Bennett will be QB1 until he's ready to come back. And I think once he gets that oblique a little taken care of, rehab, I don't really know what you do for an oblique strain other than rest it, ice it, all of that good stuff, take it easy. But as soon as he's ready to come back, I fully expect JT Daniels to come back in and be QB1. And like you say, QB2 will be Stetson from that point. Agree with you 100% on the country. Best defense in the country. Offense can also be that once we get healthy. Once we get these guys in there that are a little banged up on offense, Georgia's going to be set. I've said it year after year. When Georgia has a great defense, we don't have a good offense. When we have a great offense, we don't have a good defense. This year, we have all the pieces on both sides of the ball if we can just get healthy. We've got a couple of weeks before we really, really need these guys to come back. But, again, given our schedule, I feel like Georgia stands a really good chance to get healthy offensively and make a pretty good run at this thing. I feel really, really good about these Dogs this year. Like you said, feeling extremely optimistic about this team and season. I agree. A lot of other gifts that were put on here. Love that one from at the real McCall, Chris McCall, putting on there. the Savage Dogs. I think that was that J.R. Reed with the crazy face last year. AK Sports, always good. Let's see, always good to win, but lots of work to do. Yeah, we got some work to do, some things to clean up for sure. But I think we're going to be okay. I think we'll clean this up. I saw somebody else put on there on Twitter that this wasn't a good win. It was like some stats page. I think that they had wrote a column that this wasn't a very clean win, and I'm thinking, what? Do you just not want to be happy in the world? What are we doing? It's a great win. I love to see it. So, all right, here we go. Let's see if I can pull this up. Said I was going to do the show early. Yeah, here's my guy that I got to shout out here. Shout out Robbie the Tech Guy, at Robbie the Tech Guy, or excuse me, at Robbie the Tech GU1. Did actually want to know where the podcast is. Again, you guys that are watching on YouTube, you're watching the podcast, first of all. But in the description, I always leave, I think, the link tree. You can always go to the website, too, The website is dawgtalkpod.com, spelled like it's supposed to be, D-A-W-G, talkpod.com. And you can scroll through the whole page. Once you get 3/4 of the way down the page, it actually has a player right there with all of the podcasts on it. The Twitter is actually right in the middle of it. But top right corner, boom, hit that menu button. You'll see it scroll across there. The posts, which are just a couple of posts that I've written over time, really through preseason. I hadn't done anything in a little while, but that'll be one thing that you can look at there. You can hit the show episodes. It'll pull that same player up there with all the podcasts. You can hit Twitter, take you to the Twitter page. Hit YouTube, it'll also take you to the YouTube channel. But I also leave the link tree link in the description of the podcast, wherever you're listening, and in the YouTube link. That way, you can click on that. It'll take you to Apple Podcasts. It'll take you to Spotify, iHeartRadio on there as well. We're pretty much anywhere. I don't know about Stitcher, but just about anywhere that you can find a podcast, we should be on it. Because I've done a really good job about trying to pull that up and get it out there. But I want to say shout out to Robbie the Tech Guy, because I really appreciate him reaching out on here. And also giving that follow on YouTube as well as on Apple Podcasts. Really appreciate that. So shout out to him. You guys follow him on Twitter. And that is at Robbie, R-O-B-B-Y, the Tech Guy. And that is at R-O-B-B-Y, the Tech GU1 on Twitter. You guys go give him a follow. And if you guys don't mind that are listening, Robbie, you too, on Apple Podcasts, give me that 5-star review. 5-star and a review. Be awesome. That just helps me move up the line as far as podcast goes. Everybody on that you're listening. So you can do the same thing on Twitter. I don't really know how it works on YouTube. I don't know if you can do a review. On the website, though, you can go to dawgtalkpod.com. And at the bottom, I think I do actually have that you can do like a 5-star rating on there. You can leave a comment or what have you. So that was that. I don't think I really had very many other questions come up. Oh yeah, I did. Here we go. Steven Klinger coming in again at _. Dag nabbit, I'm gonna get this thing right in a minute. At Klinger_Steven. What do you think about all the conference realignment talks? Probably won't affect Georgia too much aside from Oklahoma and Texas moving to the SEC. But as an App State alumni, man, I hate it for you because y'all should have beat Miami tonight. But anyways, I would love to see them move to a more competitive conference. So what do I think about all the realignment? Obviously, a lot of it going on. They've been saying that Oklahoma and Texas, they're coming in 2025. I don't believe that. I said that they would be coming probably 2023 just to give enough time for us to get through this season, next season, and then 2023 they'd be here. There's a lot of conversation going on right now that they're going to be here next year. Very well possible. If they are, that's great. I mean, I'm all for it. And then you got 4 teams that are moving to the Big 12 that I thought the Big 12 was just going to dissipate and not become anything. As far as the alliance goes with the Big 10, ACC, and Pac-12, it's just a handshake between guys. That's not really much of a realignment that's going on there. But I don't hate it necessarily. You know, I do think that eventually there does need to be some change in conferences. Like, for example, right now, do we need Oklahoma and Texas to come into the SEC? Nah, not necessarily. I'm glad that Arkansas looks good this year because the SEC West looks to be up and probably really good. The SEC East, down. Tennessee, don't think they're going to be all that great this year. South Carolina, don't think they're all going to be all that great this year. Vanderbilt, don't know how they're still in the SEC in general. So some of it, I do think you need a little bit of tweaking here and there over time. It's been a while since the SEC has had a tweak between, 2012 we had Texas A&M and Missouri come in. So in a sense, a few years ago, I probably would have said, all right, let's get rid of Arkansas, let's get rid of Vandy, and either go from there or pull a couple of other teams in. Now I'm glad that Arkansas is a little bit better. I don't know about Vandy. I would be okay with trading out an App State for Vandy. Just my opinion. I mean, not too terribly far apart from one another. I mean, there is some mileage, but we could make it work. You'd still be in the East. Have to play Georgia every year, but just an opinion. But I could see, App State. What is App State? Sun Belt? I probably just butchered that, and I apologize, because you're obviously an App State alum. But, I mean, I don't mind it. Again, some things need alignment. This is much bigger than just a couple of teams moving to the SEC now, with 4 other teams going to the Big 12, and this handshake that's going on between 3 other conferences. That's literally just that. I don't think there's much of that. So I don't necessarily hate it. Now, give it another couple of years and let's see what happens. Really, let's see what happens by the end of this season. Let's see if there's a lot of major changes. If everybody all of a sudden blows it up and we just start to create just these huge super conferences where the group of 5 really gets completely left out, I don't want that. I don't want something like that to happen. And I don't think that's what is happening in this. I think that, the Power 5 conferences have been exactly that, but the group of 5 has teams that can compete with that. I think once you start to get massive, if you had just like an SEC that became huge, and then I thought the Big 12 would go away, so then you had like an ACC that maybe combines with a Big 10 to be huge, and a Pac-12 and Big 12 kind of gets absorbed by the Pac-12. If you had something like that became 3 powerhouse conferences, the group of 5 would start to diminish in a way, and a lot of that's now going to be because of the new NIL deals that can happen. And in these huge conferences, big teams that can pay a lot more money, that can get a lot more revenue coming in for those players, it makes a huge recruiting disadvantage for those group of 5 teams. So if it got to that point, I probably wouldn't be quite as on board with it, but as of right now, it's okay. We're not in a situation that we should have to worry too much again. As long as things don't start snowballing into something huge with that handshake going on over there on the other side. So I think that's pretty much it for the night. I know I kind of went a little bit long on this. I'm just going to scroll through real quick again. Glad to see Arkansas get the win. A lot of you guys agreed with that. One thing I thought was kind of funny. Breaking news, Texas has decided to back out of their move to the SEC. Inside sources say that some guy named Sam in Fayetteville was harassing them. Also, Texas can't catch the ball. Glad to see Texas get a big win there. I'm pretty much going to wrap it up for you guys. I just wanted to look to make sure I didn't have anything else on there before we jumped out of here. Let me get my mouse up and running again. 34-7, LSU up on McNeese State. Vanderbilt 14-6. Look at there, Vanderbilt trying to make a comeback here. Isn't that nice? Did they score a touchdown? I don't know. You guys probably don't care either at this point. So let's pretty much just go ahead and wrap this thing up. Again, I really appreciate you guys listening. If you're watching on YouTube, listening, you guys go again over to Twitter at DawgTalk20. Follow me there. I really appreciate it. 5 stars if you listen on Apple Podcasts. Hit that like, share, subscribe button on YouTube and everything. You guys, I will check in on you guys later this week as we get prepared to take on South Carolina coming up next week. Appreciate it again. Go Dogs.